Okay, so this is the part I've been waiting for. This is where I get to use my 40 years of experience in quality. It's so exciting to have an audience where I can use the Q word. Okay, so there is a paper in your book. It's the last 8 pages. It's a paper that I wrote. I actually got an award for that paper. What I did was I looked at the field of safety and safety performance, and I found journal articles and research articles that evaluated what were the factors of success, what was true about an organization when they had good safety performance. Okay? And there's some really big studies about that because obviously it's a very important topic. We want to know what drives good safety performance. So there's all kind of literature about that. So I looked at that literature and I identified the elements of a highly performing safety culture. And then I did the same thing with quality, and I was actually a lot more familiar with that, but I went to the journals and I tried to do literature search and I got all those things and I made a comparison between the factors. And it turns out they overlap almost 100%. It's striking. Good leadership, good factory management makes good things happen, whether they're quality things or safety things. It's just the result of making sure people are taken care of and that the right culture exists in the company. But out of that big study, there's really 3 factors. We talked about them before: leadership, culture, and methods. And those drive good safety performance and good quality performance, and also, sidebar, excellent sustainability. You can interpret that word as profitability. So, leadership. In the literature, it says there's 2 obstacles to having good leadership of the kind that produces excellent results. The first is the challenge that being a leader is actually a hard thing to do. It requires one to sacrifice, and the aspects of their sacrifice I'll describe in a second. The second obstacle is to have leadership such that we drive trust in an organization. There are some people that are entrepreneurs, good money makers, they have innovative ideas, they have crappy trust. They're a little unreliable, they're kind of over here one day, over there the next. It's challenging. So building trust is an aspect of leadership that's an obstacle for a lot of people. Some leaders just don't like people. They came from the financial world and they just want to know how to make money, and they know how to make money, except they don't want to have to deal with people, and that isn't going to drive a great culture in their organization. So let's talk about these 2 obstacles. So what must leaders sacrifice in order to be good leaders and drive success in their organizations? The first is they have to sacrifice their pride. So I have this book in my library, and it's just a wonderful book. It's called The Unnatural Act of Management. I make my managers read it. So what's the unnatural act? Sounds a little perverse, you know? What's the unnatural act of management? Here's the deal. We promote people because they're good at what they do, right? Unfortunately, that's not what is required of managers. Managers get work done through other people, not by themselves. So we promote somebody. Let's take them on the shop floor. They're a really good worker. They're here all the time. They do a great job. They have a great attitude, and their work is excellent. Okay, so we promote them to be a supervisor. Well, all of a sudden now, they aren't doing the work anymore. They got to figure out a way to get Sam and Sally and Susie and Joe to do the same kind of work that they did, and that is a wholly different skill set. It is. And in fact, what happens, and you can relate to this, I'm sure, is those guys end up jumping in and doing stuff themselves. The micromanager, they want to do it themselves because they still believe they can do it best. And maybe they're right, but that's not how management works. They're supposed to multiply who they are by getting other people to do the work because the task is too big at that level for one guy to do it all. Right? So that's why this guy calls it the unnatural act of management. Because, like it says in the book, when the great leader's work is done, the people say, we did it ourselves. You got to recede in the background as a manager, as a leader, and let your people take the first place because they're the ones that got to get the work done. Your job is to help them. And that change in mindset, not everybody gets. We tend to promote people to the level of their incompetence. That's called the Peter Principle, right? And unfortunately, that's one of the challenges to good leadership, is we can't be the guy out front. We got to be the guy behind. We got to put our people up front, give them the credit, and encourage them to do the work, not ourselves. I don't know about you, but all that talk about engagement looked like there was a lot of work, and you're exactly right. To be engaged means to be informed, means to be at the place where things are happening. It means following up. It means doing a bunch of things that sound a whole lot like work. And that's why people blow it off. That's why big bosses take long vacations. It's a struggle to stay engaged enough and involved enough and be encouraging enough, always putting yourself behind, not in front. That is just plain work. People don't want to do it. And if you're a boss, you need to resolve yourself that the reason that they pay you that big bucks, and maybe they're small bucks to you, but they're big bucks compared to your people that are working for you, whatever they pay you, they're doing that because they expect you to work for a living. There's no free lunch. Leadership is not watching other people work. It just changes the definition of what you work. We got to stay ahead. We got to keep learning. We got to spend time seeing things differently, because we all know what happens when we get stuck doing the same thing the same way and expecting something different. It ain't going to happen. So leaders particularly have to be educationally up to date. They have to be reading the literature. They have to understand how people are doing stuff in other areas. They have to keep abreast of the trends and understand how that's going to impact the business. And that's a challenge, and it's a sacrifice. I don't know about you, but I know some people that are never wrong. At least that if you were to ask them, they may have made some errors in judgment, they may have made some oopses, but they were never wrong. Well, unfortunately, to be a leader, you have to be able to admit that you were wrong. And if you don't, your people will not trust you because they know that you're lying. You make a mistake, particularly a plant manager makes a mistake, screws something up, we run out of parts, or we have to have a shutdown for a while, or maybe we make a bad policy that just shouldn't have ever been instituted, and we have to retract it. The big boy says, I screwed up, guys. I'll own that. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Have somebody big enough to say, I screwed up, I'm sorry? We need to do that more often, probably. But that is a sacrifice. Your own pride, your own humility. We also got to take care of ourselves as leaders. I used to take 20 to 30% of my allotted vacation time each year because I thought that the company could not do without me. And so what happens then? You get burned out, you get crabby at your wife, you have all kinds of other problems, right? So leaders have to take care of themselves, not just the work. And they have to figure out a way to balance that. I learned a long time ago that the work never ends. I work in quality. When do we achieve perfection? That's what the goal is, right? You're never going to get there. Every day there's more work to be done. And every production guy can tell you the same thing. It's not just support function versus production. Every day there's more work to be done than those hours that are allotted to work. You want to burn yourself out? Go ahead. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help your factory. So you want to be a leader that's trustworthy? You're going to have to be up on your game, able to engage people and not be crabby and upset and down in the mouth, because people see the way you're looking. When you walk through the hallway, people see what you look like. And that's going to depend on how well you're taking care of yourself, not just business conditions. So, I said leaders got to sacrifice, they also got to earn trust. It's not enough, guys and girls, it's not enough to sit in your office and be a nice guy. That is not going to earn you trust. Pretty picture, right? You actually got to do some intentional things to build trust. Okay? So what kind of things like that? Oh, and by the way, you can't insist that people trust you. You're going to respect me or else. The floggings will continue until morale improves. Now, that doesn't work. Okay? And in fact, the more that you stamp your feet and act like people should think you're a bigwig, the less and less they actually will. Slavery or tyranny are the options for a person that runs a show like that. And we don't want to work at either one of those places, and your people certainly don't. So what do we got to do to earn trust? So first of all, the things that we got to do, they are actions, not words. Trust me, trust me, trust me. How many politicians say that? We don't do it, right? So we got to do actions. We've got to demonstrate first authentic care for people. And authentic care means that it costs you something, that it's going out of your way. It may not be a big dollar thing, but it's the gift of your time or some little token that makes it look like you went out of your way. Might meet a need for somebody. You know, this little picture, it's kind of a weird picture. You probably, because it's personally meaningful to me. Here's what my boss did. My boss is the COO of a big, it's the big company, right? So here's the COO. On a particular weekday morning, he gets up, he puts on a little vest like a waiter. I don't know where he got it, Halloween store, I have no idea. He put on a little vest. Okay? Now this guy, just to give you an idea, at the time he was probably 64 years old, and he was formerly a Navy captain, ran a big boat, I'm a high-level guy in the military, transitioned to civilian life, worked in a lot of different places. Now he's our COO. He's a highly respected guy. He puts on a black vest, doesn't fit all that well, but he puts on this little black vest. He goes and buys a Mountain Dew. Out of our kitchen area, he gets this silver tray that we use for serving tea to visitors, and he puts a Mountain Dew on it. Then he takes a towel from the kitchen area in the office, and he wraps it over his arm, and he serves a Mountain Dew to one of my quality engineers who did an excellent job with a customer the day before. He heard about it. He, in front of everybody else, served her that Mountain Dew, poured it into a glass for her, and thanked her in front of her peer group. Do you think that lady remembers that guy did that? That's what's showing. A little care, a little respect, a little appreciation for what somebody does that they thought would never be noticed. When we encourage good behavior like that, we earn friends. I'm so impressed with my boss. I've quoted him in a later slide. But he's a good role model for me. He's a little salty because of his Navy long background. Sometimes he conflicts with my seminary background sometimes. But he's taught me how to care for people. So here's some examples of things that we might do. Practical things. You can think of your own list. But just thanking people for normal, faithful work is so important. People don't feel appreciated. How many times does your supervisor go out and thank people? Actually use the words, "Thank you, Ralph, for coming in today. I know that job is a pain. Thank you. You did it really well. You're the best at this." Whatever you want to say. Give people a little credit. Listening to people, checking in on people, finding out what's going on in their personal lives. We don't have to be mom and dad. They don't want us to be, frankly. But they do want to have friends. They want to feel like they're coming into a place where they're a name and not a number and not a machine and not a process operator. In order to earn trust, we got to help people appreciate the context. We make decisions all the time as bosses, and we don't feel the need to explain ourselves. We just figure we're the boss, and it's our job to do what we're going to do. So we put out, I don't know, here's the schedule for shutdown over the July 4th holiday. And we just put it out, and maybe it rankles some people's feelings or whatever. Or we decide we're going to slow production down for a while, or maybe speed it up. Or we're making decisions that affect people's lives, and we don't tell them a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing, what's weighing on us, what we're thinking about. Yeah, we make the big bucks, and that's the kind of decisions we're paid to make, but when it affects people's lives, we want to at least humanize the decisions. We want to help people appreciate what circumstances we're in so they can kind of buy in and say, we are in tough times and we got to tighten the belt. At the same time, when times are good, we want to do the opposite and make sure that people understand that we're giving them some break, or here's a bonus or whatever. Here's some time, a lunch to celebrate a milestone achieved. This is our opportunity to demonstrate our values. And in order for people to trust us, they need to know what we're thinking. Because if you don't tell them, they will figure out what you're thinking because they will decide on their own. They will make up a story about why things are happening to them this way. And you'll hear about it when you're in the barber's chair. And you saw the warning in there. If it's crappy, it's crappy, and it's going to smell that way. My boss, one of Merkel's laws. My boss' name is Rick Merkel. Merkel's laws. One of his laws is you can't polish horse S blank blank T. It doesn't work. Okay, I tried to say it in the seminary fashion. If it smells bad, a paint job won't help. You get the impression. So if you got to make a tough decision, you're just going to have to come out and explain it. But if you can't explain why, if you're doing it just to pad your pocket, sorry. Probably oughtn't be making that decision. To earn trust, you also need to deliver. You need to be trustworthy. You need to be competent at your job. And while I said we ought to admit mistakes, we shouldn't be making mistakes all the time. We need to get people from here to there. We got to run a business that makes money. We got to be reliable, and we got to own our failures. Our team owns the successes. Here's two guys that are leaders. You recognize those guys from the news? Colin Powell, Elon Musk. Which one do you want running your company? Well, there's probably a little better press about Colin. got us through the first Gulf War, looked up to as a leader by lots of people. And then we got another guy that draws an enormous amount of money into his company, got very innovative ideas, and is kind of a wacko in some respects. And when you read about him, you're expecting drama. That's not the way we want to be, right? So we talked about leadership. Let's quickly remind ourselves about culture. So this has been a focus for us all day. There's my boss, Rick Merkel. Kind of a funny picture. He's getting old now. He's struggling with prostate cancer. He's got some issues. But here's two things that he reminds me all the time. My job is to provide to my people what they need to be safe and successful. Same thing they told me back in 1994 when I took over that factory. Give your people what they need to be safe and successful. That's the plant manager's job. So that's a Merkel statement. That's a Merkelism, he would call it. And another one is take care of your people and the numbers will take care of themselves. I think that's true. So that breeds a company culture that's open, that's fair, that it's connected. You know, one of the things that really kills things is how quick gossip runs through factories. You ever notice that? Talk to somebody and yeah, we're going to have layoffs. Well, what? I'm on the management committee. I didn't hear about layoffs. What's going on? What's that all about? You know, people just get ideas in their head and it runs around. And the way you interact with that positively is you put out correct information. And people see it often enough and they see it come to fruition that they start believing what you say about the company and its situation in life and why you're making decisions. And you don't lie to your people, ever. If you got bad news, tell them. Because eventually they're going to find out. It's going to result in some change. So, you stay connected. You communicate. You care for each other. You talk the same language. You always put safety ahead of quality, ahead of productivity. And you reward the right behaviors. Sometimes with a Mountain Dew. Sometimes with a bonus check. Sometimes with a pat on the shoulder and a thanks. That's culture. I'm going quicker now, right? Everybody's happy? Okay. So, believe it or not, all day long, I could have been talking about quality. You know, here's some things that safety and quality share in terms of tools, techniques, methods. If I can get it started here. So, all these things have been applied to the field of safety, and they've certainly been applied to the field of quality to address issues, all of which is about improving our situation in life through learning by Plan, Do, Check, Act. The job of the safety guy and the job of the quality guy overlap so closely. Why is that? Because we're both trying to control the process by having specific, stable results. Nobody wants surprises. Nobody wants weird things happening. We want boring days, both the safety guy and the quality guy. I don't want to get calls. When I hear a call and I'm in my quality mode, that means somebody's unhappy. When the safety guy gets a call, that means somebody maybe got hurt. Neither of us are happy at that time. We want the phone to be not ringing. And our job is to manipulate, to work with, to improve the process inside the four walls of this factory so that we get consistent, stable, conforming results. We're on the same team. We both have to deal with equipment and tools and people and their decisions in order to have good results happen. We have the same challenges to control the process. Variability and unpredictability are the enemies of both safety and quality. Doesn't that make sense to you? Both quality and safety are support functions. I can't tell anybody what to do directly. On the production floor, that's a different boss. And the production boss and me, we both report to the big boss. And I can complain about him, and he can complain about me, but what I have is my credibility. That's it. I don't have any formal authority to make him do anything, but if I'm going to be effective, he's got to listen to me. That means I need to know what I'm talking about, and I need to be humble sometimes and listen to his troubles. And make him have success, because then he'll want to hear from me. And that happens in the safety world, and it happens in the quality world. We support guys. We are support guys. We are holding up the people who are making stuff. We're underneath the supervisors who are helping their people to get the job done every day the same way with good results. Our mission is to support production, helping them to do their job the best way that we know how. And we're both committed to continuous improvement. We both have to drive change. We both have to be on the lookout for places where we're doing something dumb. And helping people to see that it's dumb, and helping them go through the pangs and agony and wailing and gnashing of teeth about how we don't want to change something, but maybe it would be better if we did, and can you help us, please? That takes a certain skill set that both safety and quality people got to have. It's that skill set of facilitating the gentle nudge in the direction of realization that we're doing something dumb, something that needs to be improved, something that's hurting people or making something bad, creating rework or scrap. It's got a consequence that we don't like, and we got to help people look in the mirror and then pat them on the shoulder and say, it'll be all right, we're going to help it, we're going to fix it together, and then move forward with the same goal. Here's a company that kind of in your industry, a company called N-Trans International. I was trying to find an example of somebody who has swallowed the quality and the safety gospel and see them as one and the same. And here's what this company, who by the way has very good TCIR, I looked them up in another paper where their EHS lady was talking, and they're at about 1/3 of the average TCIR for all private manufacturing. Not 1/3 of where trailer manufacturers are, 1/3 of all private manufacturing, okay? So here's what they said. It says, safety is not only one of our core values. We believe that safety promotes quality and productivity. They use leading and lagging safety metrics to measure the efficacy of its safety processes. They use a maturity assessment program they talk about in there, but you know, they have a big company. They put safety first, and they realize that as they drive safety first, it improves their quality and productivity. And I just wanted to put that as a real-life example. When I get done talking, we're going to have a couple of other people talk that are in your industry directly. These guys build truck trailers. You probably recognize some of the names like Heil and Polar. So, wrapping up, I got the last couple slides. So, there's no substitute for good leadership. There's no tool, no technique, no program, no fancy thing. I'm not selling any software. This is just good old people management, taking care of folks. With the proper leadership, culture, and planning. Every accident and injury can be prevented. Maybe not immediately, but over the long term. I believe that with every bone in my body. When we create the right culture and we start planning to have safety happen, we're going to improve quality as a result. And my thought to you is this. You create vehicles that people associate with having fun. You want them to have a good time with their family. You want them to be thinking about happy things. I hope that when the folks building your trailers are working on them, that's what they're thinking about. Inside of the place that creates what is actually a mechanism for fun, should people be toiling to the point where they're cussing out what's going on around them? Should they be getting hurt? Wouldn't it be sad for somebody driving around an RV to realize that the guy that built that had an amputation? So inconsistent. We're in an industry that's creating fun, that people dream about doing things with and their family. To have people get hurt in that situation, it's the last thing we would want. But it happens. And we're all going to make a commitment to make it better, right?